get started in a seated position. So you're gonna come down to your mat and sit in whatever way is gonna be the most comfortable for you. So sitting cross-legged isn't always the most accessible. If you feel more comfortable with your legs just out straight, or if you'd like to prop yourself up on a bolster or a couple of pillows, you can feel free to do that as well, just to ease your hips into this like cross-legged seat pose. We call it easy pose, but it's not always that easy, like I said. So we're just gonna start by taking a few deep breaths and grounding into the body with the eyes closed. So shut your eyes and start to sink in to your body, so you're really feeling a connection with your posture and how you're sitting. So let's start with the sit bones and the hips. So you should be grounding evenly through both sides. If you need to kind of rock a little bit side to side to feel those hip bones, make sure you're grounding evenly and not leaning to one side. So once you're feeling good in your seated posture, you're going to zone in on your breath. So the breath is so important for the yoga practice. Taking deep inhales in through your nose, filling up your belly, filling up your chest, feeling that chest lift as you fill all the way to the top, and then exhaling, feeling everything empty out. Your navel will pull in slightly towards your spine as you press out the last bit of air by contracting the muscles of your abdomen. Your inhales and exhales should be at least 3 to 5 seconds in length, if not longer. And that's just going to depend on your lung capacity. So most, if not all, of the movements from our yoga practice are going to be connected to the breath in one way or another. Has to be some sirens. Ooh, yeah. So loud. Don't know if it gets picked up in the background, but it really distracts me. Anyways, so luckily this part is really easy to edit. With your next exhale breath, you're going to take your hands away from your legs and then lift them up to the sides, making a big wide circle as you lift the hands all the way up, inhaling until the palms touch at the top, and then as you exhale, you're going to draw your hands down through the center. Palms are touching in like a prayer hands sort of gesture all the way down the exhale. And then inhale, repeating that 2 more times. So nice and slow inhale. Remember, you're trying to take 3 to 5 seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And then the same for the exhales. Really drawing, especially the exhales out as long as you can. And that's a really good breathing technique for reducing anxieties, just lengthening out your exhales. Back down onto your legs, and we're going to switch which side we have crossed, or which side is in the front anyway. So one hip is going to be stretching slightly more because the legs aren't exactly at the same distance or angle from the hip. So grounding into those hip bones again now that you're on the other side, and you might have opened your eyes in order to make that change. So we're going to go back into our internal world here. We're feeling into our body, we're feeling all those breaths and movements. We want to keep that going for a few more minutes, and then we will do the rest of our practice with the eyes open. We won't be shut-eye the whole time. So let's stretch out through the neck. You're going to take your chin and drop it down towards your chest, keeping your shoulders and chest lifted and upright. So you're not rounding at all through the upper body, you're just dropping the head down, really stretch. Once you start to feel it in your shoulders, and you can stop, just letting the neck lengthen out from the back. If you'd like a little bit deeper of a stretch, you can take your hands and just rest them on the back of the head gently. You're not pulling down, but just the added weight of your hands resting on the back of your head is going to intensify that stretch. So you might feel it right down into your spine in between your shoulders, and that's good. Obviously there's a lot of interconnection between the neck and the shoulders. So even though we're just stretching the neck right now, we're just moving the neck right now, it's still starting to stretch into that shoulder area. You can release the hands, bring the head up nice and gently. We're going to take the head to one side, so we'll go to my right first. Taking that right hand, placing it on the side of the head, and just using that to gently guide the ear over towards the shoulder. The same kind of stretch as we did on the other side. And then one simple way to add on to this stretch, if you'd like to, is to take the other arm and start to stretch the fingertips out towards your mat at about a 45-ish degree angle. So your fingertips might be lightly touching down or just hovering into space. And then you're going to start to feel a sort of tingly, stretching sensation as you reach from your neck all the way down your arm. And then release. Take it over to the other side. So again, just gently with the left hand, bringing the head down, and guiding, so ear towards the shoulder, not shoulder towards the ear, so your shoulders should be relaxed. And then again here, if you want to add the arm out to the side, if that's something that feels good for you, that little reach, that little extra stretch, extra slight pull, it's going to start to stretch out a whole line of muscles and tendons and things that work all the way down from your neck to your hands. And then releasing. So you can slowly flutter your eyes. So for first spinal stretch, we're going to take the arms up overhead. Inhale, and then as we exhale, we're going to turn towards the left hand side. Your right hand is going to come to your left knee. Left hand is going to come to the floor right behind you. So just on the fingertips, a few inches behind your tailbone. Sitting up nice and tall as you inhale again, and then exhaling to maybe twist a little deeper. Just warming up. You don't have to twist super hard or super far right now, just gentle. And then we'll release, lifting the hands back up. And then over to the other side. Right hand comes to the left knee. And your left hand just behind your tailbone. A few inches, maybe 5 or 6 inches, whatever feels right for your arm length. Inhaling to sit up tall, exhaling, maybe you're finding a little bit more of a twist here, but again, we're not forcing anything. And then releasing forward. Bring the hands up overhead one more time. We're going to drop the left hand over to the left side. The right hand is going to go up overhead. So a nice long stretch all the way from the hip. So make sure your hip on the right is still grounded down. And then you're reaching up and over and not rounding down. And release. Do the same to the other side. Right hand is going to drop down. And then reaching up and over. Just like I said on the other side, you don't want your chest rounding down towards the floor.
more you really want to be opening the chest up towards the ceiling. And then release, coming back to a seated position. So we are going to move out of the seated position, but we better wake our legs up a little bit here. So we're going to flap the knees up and down, just bouncing the legs a little bit, getting a little bit of motion going into those hips. And I want you to bring the soles of the feet together. So in a cobbler pose, sometimes called a butterfly pose, you rock a little side to side, ground those hips down, and sit up nice and tall. Take a nice big inhale and then fold forward as much as is comfortable for you. So this is going to start to stretch into the hips a little bit and the lower back as well. So we're keeping the spine nice and long and straight here. So you don't want to be rounding or curving through the spine. You're lifting still through the head, getting length through the spine as you fold your chest towards your feet. You can release that one. Bring your hands to the outsides of your knees, and you're going to close those knees like a book. Turn to the side, coming onto hands and knees. So getting into a nice tabletop position, really symmetrical. It helps if your mat has lines on it, but if it doesn't, you're going to have to feel into your body even more to make sure that your shoulders are square, your hands aren't wonky, like one further forward than the other, and then the knees as well should be equal distance apart. And you want your shoulders and your hips to be making about a 90-degree angle, so you're like a rectangle or a square. Sometimes it is helpful to record yourself. You don't have to post it anywhere, but sometimes it is helpful to record yourself if you don't have a mirror nearby to see how some of your poses are lining up. So tabletop position here, really good stuff. What we're going to do is take the leg. Let's do the right leg first. We're going to take it back, stretching and extending out through the leg. Point the toe and then flex the foot. Maybe do a couple circles through that ankle and start to wake that ankle up. And then we're going to make a couple of circles with the hip. So you're going to draw a circle in the air with your knee towards the back. And then once you've done about 3 or 4, you're going to switch and do that same thing towards the front. Then you can drop that knee down, and then we'll lift up the other side. So that left foot now, again, stretching out through the leg. You can point the toe, flex the foot, point the toe, flex. Try not to arch your back too much as you're lifting the leg. And then ankle circles, one direction and then the other direction. And then let's get into the hip circles. Knees drawing that circle in the air backwards for 3 or 4 reps, and then taking it towards the front for again 3 or 4 reps, warming up through those hips. We've warmed our shoulders up, we've warmed our spine up a little bit, we've warmed our hips up and our ankles up a little bit. Let's keep on going. We're going to go into our cat-cows. So drop your belly down, inhale, lift your head up slightly, and then exhale. Head drops down as the spine lifts and rounds towards the ceiling. Hips tuck under. As you inhale, back into that cow type position. So this is the cow part of the cat-cow on the inhale, and then the cat part of the cat-cow on the exhale. Inhale exhale, cat. And then we'll take a child's pose. You can draw your knees out nice and wide. Put your tops of your feet down and sit back towards your heels. Walk your hands forward and down. As you come into your child's pose, you can rest the forehead down, getting the chest nice and low as much as you can. Belly resting on the thighs. And just sitting the hips back to extend the lower back and get that length and that stretch. Nice big inhales and exhales. Rising back up, coming back onto all fours again here. We'll take our hands forward into a puppy pose. Depending on where you are on your mat, you might want to back your knees a little bit. So it's similar to the child's pose that we were just in, except you don't lower your hips back. You keep your hips lifted up above your knees. And extend the chest down towards the floor, trying to drop the chest down between the shoulder blades. Bringing a big bend into the spine, so this is a great way to stretch the core, stretch the chest, fronts of the shoulders. Even the backs of the shoulders are going to be getting a little bit of a stretch here. And then you can walk your hands back in and come back onto all fours. So I'm going to start to stretch a little bit more into the legs and a little bit more into the hips. So one stretch that's really great to warm into the legs is a little calf stretch that's really simple to do from this all fours position. Start with the right leg, you'll step your leg back, and instead of just stepping onto the toes, you're going to step onto the toes and the ball of the foot. And once you do that, you're automatically going to feel that calf muscle start to stretch. That can be a bit much, so if you need to take a little breather on it, release, bend the knee a little and then come back. That's fine, and remember to breathe through it. So even though we're in a static pose, you still want to be inhaling and exhaling. Release that knee down. We'll stretch the other leg. So stepping back, getting the ball of the foot tucked under. And then just letting this pose do its work. You can push back into your hands a little tiny bit if you feel like you need to. But this one is usually pretty intense, especially if you do a lot of walking and you're on your feet a lot. One of those hurts so good kind of poses. I hope anyways. And then release that foot down. So you can sit back, maybe grab a little bit of water. That's what I'm gonna do actually. Then we're going to come into a couple of lunge positions and some standing poses. Just a couple. And we'll also introduce a little bit of downward facing dog. So I'm going to need my hands to be nice and grippy. So yes, I'll explain why that's important here. So let's do our downward facing dog now. Hands are so important for downward facing dog, and your grip and how you work your fingers into the mat is really important, especially for avoiding wrist pain. So a lot of people starting yoga will find that sometimes their wrists get really sore from
planks and the downward facing dogs and all that kind of stuff. So to reduce that or avoid that, what you want to do is grip into the mat like you're trying to pick it up, like your hands are suction cups. And you know how suction cups kind of really attach the most around the outside? That's what you want to do with your fingertips. And then the, what's that part called? The bottom, this part of your hand. I don't know what that part's called. But yeah, you want to be gripping into that, I guess the bottom part of your palm and your fingertips, including your thumb. Again, like you're trying to suction cup your mat up. So the inside of your hand might actually lift up a little bit. Your knuckles might actually be lifting up a little bit, and that's a good thing. That means the weight is being fully dispersed through to the fingertips and not just being dumped into your wrist, which is what causes that pain. So it's a lot of chatter about hands and fingers, but it's very, very important. So let's step back into a plank position here. So you can test this out and see how this feels. Let's just hold for a couple of breaths here, get a little bit of core fire energy burning up. And then you can bend into your knees, send your hips back, pressing through your hands so your arms go into a diagonal line to your shoulders. That line is going to continue up your spine all the way to the hips. So you're making a triangle-ish with the floor, your upper body, and then your legs. Although if you are feeling anything like me, your knees might still be a little bit bent because stretching the legs out straight in downward facing dog takes quite a bit of flexibility in those legs. And I'll tell you, I hit a leg day yesterday for the books, and I'm feeling it today. So bent knees is a-okay in your downward facing dog. And then we can even do a little pedal out here, bending in one knee a little bit more, giving the opposite leg a little bit of a stretch straighter, just alternating side to side, keeping your grip in your hands, so don't lose sight of that just because we've started to move. And then from here, let's come down onto the knees again. We'll transition into a low lunge by just stepping forward with the left leg. So find a lunge that feels comfortable for you. And then once you feel good and how long of a stance you're in, you can start to come up, resting the hands on the top of the thigh. You can ease into this, but you want to drop your hip down towards the floor a little bit more. Gradually, little by little. Really feeling a lot of lengthening through the hip flexor on that right hand side on the leg that's back. And then a lot of opening through the hip joint on the left side. From here, one of my favorite stretches, especially after a crazy leg day or a long hike, is to stretch backwards into what's called a half split. Extending the front leg, not all the way straight. You can see there's still a little bit of a bend in my knee here. And then coming forward. So this is one where you can connect it to the breath. I kind of think of it as like a cat-cow for the legs and hips. So you're coming back on your exhale, folding, and forward on your inhale. Do this a couple more times, and then we'll switch legs and do this on the other side as well. Send those hips back and forward. Good job. So to transition to the other side, we'll sit up forward, finding a forward fold here for a moment. Then legs can be a little bit bent in this forward fold. You want to make, you want to focus on the connection between your belly and your thighs.
That means that your lower back is getting nice and lengthened out, not rounding or doing anything funky that it might do if you try to straighten your legs out too much. Too fast anyways. This is a great one to practice for really tight quads, or sorry, hamstrings, is what I meant to say, hamstrings. Quads are not getting stretched very much right now at all. This is a definite hamstring stretcheroo. Letting your head be heavy, shoulders be heavy. Taking a few breaths, and then we're gonna step back with that left leg. So you can place the hands down and then take a big old step back with that left leg. Woo. So right leg is forward. Finding a good length in that lunge stance for you. So you might need to bring your knee a little bit forward or a little bit backward. So again, hands can rest just on the top of the thigh on the right hand side, and our little gentle micro movements up and down, or slightly forward and back. It's going to help to open into those hips and let everything get a little bit lower in this low lunge. Breathing, making sure you're still taking nice inhales and exhales. And then as you exhale next, you're going to drop those hands down and send the hips back into that half split fold on the right hand side. Remember to inhale as you draw forward, lifting through the chest. And then exhale to send the hips back. A couple more times on this side. It's really important with yoga that any stretch you do on one side, you do to the other side as well. Sending the hips back. And then coming forward. You can tuck your toes under in the back foot. Start to come up into more of a runner's lunge. So runner's lunge is like a low lunge, but the knee is off the floor. And we're going to transition this into a warrior one. So to do that, you want to walk the foot in a little bit, plant the heel down, and turn the foot on an angle, about 45 degrees. Then you're going to turn your hips forward, bending into the front knee, and then you'll lift your arms up overhead, lifting the spine straight up, just like we did when we were sitting at the start, really lengthening up. Think of the crown of the head lifting towards the ceiling. And that's our warrior one position. You can release the hands, straighten out through the front leg. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So to do that, we'll just simply step forward, step back. Remember, you want that foot to be planted fully down with about a 45-degree angle-ish. And don't step back too far because you won't be able to fully straighten out your hips. So your hips should be like, the 2 points of your hips should be like headlights on a car. You want them both to be pointing forward and in the same direction. You want like one of your headlights to be pointing off to the side. That would be very unhelpful. So sometimes it takes a little trial and error to get the stance correct, but once you feel it, once you practice it a few times, you'll start to know when you've hit your correct stance. And warrior one is so common. You'll see this in lots of yoga practices. So really lifting those arms up overhead again. Inhale, exhale, inhale, lifting, reaching on those inhales, and as you exhale, pushing that air out and drawing the abdomen in towards the spine. And then from here you can step forward, just releasing everything. You can take a little shake out. So
already most of the way through our little yoga practice for today. We're gonna take a wide-legged forward fold. But first, you can hear from my voice, I need a little bit of water. That probably means that you need a little bit of water too. Okay, now that we've had our water break, let's take a really wide stance with the legs. So I said wide-legged forward fold, remember? You want your heels and toes out, hands on the hips. Take a nice big inhale, deep breath in, and then as you exhale, you can bend through the knees slightly as you fold forward. Same as when we were doing our forward fold before, except with the legs nice and wide this time. Resting the hands down on the floor. If you need to step your feet out a little bit wider, now that you're in your fold, you can do that. Just make sure that your heels are in and toes are out. And it feels so good here. Just sway a little bit back and forth. Just alternating which knee has a little bit of a bend in it as you move towards that side. Bend the knee. Just a little. Feel a nice inner groin and hamstring stretch on the opposite side as you dip. And then just coming to some stillness here and the fold, just really finding out how far you can fold, keeping the spine nice and long. You don't want to be rounding too much here. Draw up halfway, so lifting your spine till it's at 90 degrees to the legs, and then dropping back down as you exhale. And let's inhale. Move all the way up to standing. You can step the feet together. Then we're gonna come down to the mat. So you can sit down whatever way it feels good to your body. Finding yourself on your back. The first of our lying down poses has a bit of a funny name. It is called a wind relieving pose. So you're going to draw one leg in. Let's start with the left. You're going to bend at the knee, interlace the hands on the upper side of the shin, and then draw the leg in towards the chest. If you do happen to relieve some wind, well, you will understand why the pose is called that. Breaths here, feeling that stretch, releasing through the hip and the lower back. Here you can draw the other leg in as well, hugging both legs in, wrapping the arms around both of the shins. Then you can rock a little bit from side to side here if that feels good. Literally just massaging out the lower back using your body weight against the floor. Gently and slowly side to side, nothing crazy. We're just cooling down, winding down our practice. You can release that left leg and bring the right one in for the wind relieving pose on the second side. Drawing that leg in as close as you can to your chest. You might feel it slowly coming in closer and closer as you stay in this stretch and continue to breathe. From here, you can bring your right arm down to the floor. Your left hand is going to guide the right knee across the body over to the other side. So you're going to slightly roll onto your left hip, but you're going to keep your right shoulder where it is. So you're not completely rolling onto the side, you're twisting. This is one of my favorite all-time twists to do. It's nice to do in bed. Really great if you've had a really big meal or your digestion isn't going great. You want to remember to do your right
right side before your left side in that case. And then release. Again, just hugging that knee in towards the chest. And then letting it go down to the floor. We'll switch sides. So our twist on the left. Left arm can go down towards your side. Just resting on the floor. Right hand is on the left knee, and that's guiding over towards the right hand side. The left shoulder is staying stuck to the floor like it's glued there. Rolling over onto the right hip as much as you can. Feeling that stretch through the hip and the lower back. Twists, you can get kind of off center or off kilter on your mat. So come back to a nice central position and bring both knees in towards the chest again. Take your hands, reach up for the outside edges of the feet, and then extend the knees. So your soles of your feet are towards the ceiling. This is our happy baby. You're going to really open up through the legs so the knees are coming down towards the armpits, and then you can start to rock a little bit side to side here. Deep breaths. You feel some little pops or hear some little things releasing in your back and hips. Massage that we're giving. As long as nothing's painful, then that is all good and normal. And then coming to rest on the back. Taking your feet into that butterfly leg position that we did closer to the start of the class. Bringing the soles of the feet together and pulling them in towards the hips. This is like a reclined version of that butterfly pose. And releasing, coming back up to a seat. I do actually want to finish in that butterfly pose seated. So soles of the feet, once again, they're together, knees are falling out towards the sides. And you can make this as wide as you need to, so if you need to bring your feet out a little bit more, or again, sit up on a pillow. Always ways to modify a lot of these positions. If you do ever have any questions about specific poses and how to modify them, those can be sent to me through my Patreon. So for this last pose, we're going to fold again here, but instead of keeping the spine straight like we did in our first fold, you can round your spine for this last one. So with the knees coming down towards the sides, you're going to be folding forward, this time rounding the spine, bringing the head down towards the feet, holding onto the feet with the hands just for a little bit of extra help. Pull yourself a little closer, finding the edge of your stretch, and then just staying there for a few breaths. And then release. So that is all for today's practice. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and as always, if there's anything in particular that you would like to see next, those can also be requested via my Patreon page. That's going to be linked below.